Hi, this is Chike Coleman. Welcome back to another edition of Real Review Cinematic Underground. As usual, I'm here with my companion, Chike Koplinski, where we
May want to rephrase that.
Rephrase it? My partner in crime.
Okay, that's better.
Partner in
That's
crime.
better.
Partner in crime, Chike Koplinski, and we're going to talk about movies, as usual. First thing I want to lead off with is Ebert Fest. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you did not go.
Did not go.
Did not attend.
No.
All right.
It's become something I don't really like. So.
Yeah, I understand why you say that now. We'll get to that in a minute. I had a fantastic time volunteering for Ebert Fest on, I believe it was Wednesday night. And then I believe on Friday night I went to an all-day thing for Ebert Fest. I did, the first thing I saw was On Borrowed Time about the director Paul Cox, and I believe it was, I want to say kidney cancer, but I may be wrong there. And what's weird about this documentary is it's not so much about the kidney cancer and how it affects him, but more about how his movies made him the personality he is today.
And what movies had he made?
You know,
for the uninitiated.
I hate to say this, but I do not remember any of the titles. But they're very humanist portraits, organic to, you know, couples and life. Just different themes keep being perpetuated throughout his films, and most of it is autobiographical. So that's kind of interesting within the film perspective. To have a filmmaker constantly writing about pieces of his life that reflect who he is. So that was an interesting documentary. Second thing that I saw was the Wild and Weird from the Alloy Orchestra, and they were doing, you know, these shorts from 1906 to 1926. And the Alloy Orchestra just timed everything perfectly. I was enthused by some shorts and bored by others. I like the Rare Bit shorts. I think that's what it's called, the Rare Bit shorts. Loved those. There was one about an animal that kept growing and growing and growing whenever you fed it things. That was kind of interesting. There was another short that was about a man who had a clarinet stuck in his head, which is really weird, but it works. And so the shorts were interesting. You know, it's good to take that trip back and see where things were and how effective and funny those shorts still hold to be today. The third thing that I saw would pretty much for me be the crown jewel of the festival. Although I know that you would argue, and so would other Ebert Festers, that Take Shelter was the crown jewel. I would say it was the night that A Separation premiered on Virginia Theater's screen. Now, are you familiar with the plot of A Separation?
Yes.
Okay.
I've seen it.
Could you, you've seen the film?
Yeah.
I thought you said you hadn't seen the film.
Well, I have seen it since we talked. I had gotten a screener of it. I've seen it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what you think about, well, actually, explain the plot first to our viewers so they understand.
Well, it's about an Iranian couple. The husband, his father is suffering from Alzheimer's disease. And this has caused a rift in the marriage. The wife wants to get some care for the Alzheimer victim. The husband, of course, is resisting this because you know, he feels as though that's an impersonal way to go.
Agreed.
This is his father. I should take care of my father. And this leads to them pursuing the avenue of getting a divorce. Or a separation, I guess I should say. And this, of course, leads to a great many cultural and emotional and personal issues in which they clash on throughout the course of the film. And then something quite unexpected happens. Yes, and, of course, I really don't want to say much more than that because you need to discover this on your own.
Yeah, the advent of that unexpected incident is the catalyst for all the other drama that follows it afterwards.
Right.
What did you think of the film?
Oh, it's great. I mean, it's a great movie. Performances are dynamite, and like I say, once you get to this twist, it really turns everything on its head. You kind of feel as though you know where it's going, and then all of a sudden, you don't, and it opens up in a completely different can of worms. And that's, but it never gets into the realm of the.
It never gets boring. It never gets trite. It always feels completely organic to the story, in my opinion. I think the strongest performance in this film, I'm tempted to say this, it may have been, for me, Tara May. She's the one person that's caught completely in the middle of the turmoil and is having to choose, in some cases, what and who to believe. And I won't say anything more to that because it would spoil what the incident actually is. But I believe that she is the standout of the film. If not her, then the other gentleman who is in deep grieving throughout this film's runtime. Or in turmoil throughout this film's runtime. And I believe you know who I'm referring to. I think those two turned in the strongest performances of the film. What I found most affecting was, like you said, just when you think you know what's going on, there's another little piece of it that's explained to you and opened up, and you're like, wait, did that happen? I don't remember that. If it did happen, then that changes everything. If it didn't happen, then we're still in the same stuck position we were, an hour ago. But the fact that you have to even raise those questions is something that I think challenges moviegoers in so many different ways.
Well, I know Ebert named it his best film of last year.
Do you think it deserves that title, or do you think Take Shelter should have it?
Well, I mean, that's, of everyone's, everyone has different opinions in how you view those things, and when you come to those films, I mean, both those films are exceptional in my opinion. It didn't get much play here, but I know that Sanford is bringing it in at the Art on the 17th.
Would you see it again?
Yeah, definitely.
I would too.
Definitely.
I think that that film is a crowning achievement in what you can do with interpersonal relationships if you're a talented screenwriter or director.
Yeah, and points once more again to the fact that, character.
I mean just the way everything was framed during different points of conflict was interesting to me. And I think that's why I enjoyed it so immensely, is because you never were quite able to take your eye off the ball because something was always coming after it. So I really enjoyed that film. What else have you been watching this week?
Oh, I thought you wanted to talk about Ebert Fest some more. I saw The 5-Year Engagement.
How was that?
I really enjoyed it. And I know that it had not been getting overly favorable reviews. And I'm not sure why, because I thought it was, not only funny, but very smart in the way it, too, looked at relationships, completely in a different way than Take Shelter, but in a more contemporary American way. Jason Segel and Emily Blunt are boyfriend and girlfriend. They have gotten engaged. They live in the San Francisco area. She has just graduated from Berkeley. She's hoping to get a position there for her postdoc work. He is a chef, and it looks as though he is going to head his own restaurant. She does not get into Berkeley, though. She does get into the University of Michigan. She tells the Segel character that it's only for 2 years. We can go there. This will help my career, and then we'll come back. We'll do our thing. Well, of course, 2 years grows into 5 and perhaps more. And he, of course, goes into an incredible depression. And this depression is where the movie then really picks up a lot of speed. He really is miserable. He goes native, basically. He grows the worst beard I've ever seen. Overweight, nothing but the flannel shirts. I mean, this guy is a world-class chef, and he's reduced to making sandwiches at a delicatessen. He starts hunting. There's a guy who's another faculty husband who whiles away the hours by knitting the worst sweaters you've ever seen in your life and hunting. And Segel's character, of course, does everything he can then with the venison because he's a chef. But the things he does are just awful. And he goes into taxidermy, some of the strangest taxidermy things I've ever seen. At one point, they're drinking out of mugs that are lined with deer skin, which is still the fur on it, and the handle of the mug is a deer hoof. It is really very perverse, very funny, but really, really odd. Of course, we kind of know where this is going to head, but what's interesting is that it really does look at modern relationships and how you will sacrifice for someone, because that's what you're supposed to do when you love that person, but how the animosity can grow. if you feel as though that's not
stifled.
reciprocated, or if you're, and it is so hard for, to maintain a marriage or any sort of relationship in which you both can blossom and grow in those areas that you like sometimes. Sometimes that can be difficult. And of course, they never even get into the realm of what happens if they had had kids. That too is an area where you have to compromise and, put yourself, on the back burner. I know there's a film coming out later this year called This Is 40, which is kind of a spin-off of Knocked Up, in which we look at the Paul Rudd and Leslie Mann marriage, which is referred to, and I think that goes into this whole area as well. Same producer as 5 Year Engagement, Judd Apatow. And I like his films a lot because, yes, they are very, very funny, but they deal with real things, and they're quite smart. So, if you're not in the mood for superheroes or explosions, 5 Year Engagement, you could do a lot worse.
Inside fact for the kids at home, Judd Apatow executive produced one of my favorite kids classics from the 90s, Heavyweights.
Never heard of it.
It's a camp movie. It's a movie about kids at camp who are fat, and stars a bunch of people, including Paul Feig, and also Ben Stiller in his first really huge comedic role.
His huge comedic role.
It's huge.
Heavyweights.
Huge.
It's
yeah.
Got it.
It's his first really
big
comedic role.
We have an audience today here.
Jerry Stiller also has a cameo.
Okay.
As his.
I will seek it out.
Yeah, it's a good kids movie. I think kids will enjoy it.
Okay.
Speaking of things that kids will enjoy, The Avengers came out this week. And you saw it earlier than I did. Do you want to talk about it first?
No, go ahead. I've seen it twice now, and we'll probably go again tonight. So.
I almost want to join you. So The Avengers, as anyone who has been paying attention to the media,
not been living under a rock
for the last year, knows that The Avengers involves the ultimate team-up movie of Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Black Widow, and Hawkeye, as well as the Hulk. And all I can say about this film is it's an interesting departure from the Marvel movie formula. For me, I think it's a bit of a departure.
Okay.
You know how when you see the single films, you have this one single idea of here's what needs to happen, here's why it needs to happen, and as soon as this happens, the movie's done. It's very cut and dry. But in this film, we get something quite unexpected in director Joss Whedon. Now, for those of you who also have been living under a rock and do not know who Joss Whedon is, look him up. He is the creator of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, Firefly, and Dollhouse. All science fiction cult masterpieces by television standards. I have not watched them all. I will freely and completely admit that.
We are banding about the complimentary adjectives today. Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
Masterpiece.
Okay, Joss.
Right up there with the Honeymooners.
Joss.
I Love Lucy. MASH.
Yeah.
Yeah, masterpieces all. Okay, go ahead.
Joss Whedon crafts the ultimate idea of what it means to be a team-up movie. Of course, you meet these characters, and they're not supposed to like each other, and they're not supposed to get along. You see them fighting, and ultimately what changes this from being just a normal Marvel movie is there's a level of tragedy. And I know you know what I'm speaking about when I say a level of tragedy. There's a level of tragedy that occurs not even halfway through the film that really just changes and shifts the tone a little bit. It's still hilarious, it's still action-packed, but the tone kind of takes a more serious shift than the other Marvel movies that have been out recently. And it feels different. It feels slightly heavier, slightly more grounded in emotional pain. And that's what I think I really enjoyed about this movie, is that the characters, we know who they are. We don't really need that explanation or the exposition of it. But we're grounded in their shared sorrow for the bad thing that occurs about midway through the movie. For me, the characters all work on their own levels. I think that the standout, as everyone has been saying, is Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner / the Hulk. I think there are three huge scenes in this movie where Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk or as himself gets his due, where he really just he defines what it means to be that character. What did you feel about the film? I'm sure you don't have as detailed and emotional weight of the film as I do on that one moment, but
well, I know the moment you're referring to, and yes, it is emotional, but I don't think it really changes the tone of things.
It shifts it a little bit, though.
I thought where you were headed with this was, and this is the thing I noticed, you know, you are right about the standalone films. It usually is one quest or one thing. This film, though, there are two sequences that I thought were quite interesting because they very much reflect the comic book that this is really based on. The Marvel Universe split off into this other universe called the Ultimates Universe. And instead of called the Avengers, the comic book is called the Ultimates. And it has this whole flavor to it with the helicarrier and this sort of thing. And I like the fact that you're juggling a lot of different things at the same time.
You really are.
There's a great sequence where they have this, their headquarters is a floating aircraft carrier called the helicarrier, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Really, really cool.
Yeah.
And they are attacked, and we are dealing with like 3 different things happening at the same time.
Yeah.
The Captain America and Iron Man are trying to fix the ship. The Hulk is hulked out and is going.
Black Widow is trying to escape.
Right, and then Thor comes in and tries to beat
down on
and then
Loki.
Thor ends up being thrown out of the ship. You know, all this stuff is going on, and you know, I am not ready to bow down at the altar of Joss Whedon yet, but he really did impress me with this film as far as how he was able to make all of this going on at the same time and keeping it all straight.
Yeah.
You're never confused. It's a very streamlined entertainment, despite the fact that you've got 2 and 3 things happening at the same time. And even more importantly, and this is where I think he could have tripped up very easily, anyone could have, is that he seems to give equal time to each character.
Yeah.
Every character gets a big action sequence, but more importantly, every character gets a moment where we find out something more about them. And in my mind, that's what really makes the film work. The special effects are great. Yeah, I get it. The action stuff is good. But when you've got Captain America, Mr. True Blue Patriotic, discussing things with Tony Stark, who's Mr. Cynical and doesn't trust anyone, and you see that clash of ideologies, that's where the movie really, really works, because you've got to have that feeling. You've got to know these characters for have to have any impact when they really go into the fray.
Now, I read your review before we've filmed this, and I have to say I do agree with you that it is a bit of a product, but it feels less like that when you're watching the film.
Well, you know, you compare it to Transformers.
Yeah.
Transformers is the basic plot. It's almost the same plot when you look at it. All those Transformers end in the same way that the Avengers movie look at it. But I don't care about one of those characters in the Transformer films. Here, I care about all of them.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the deal. And you're right about the Hulk. You know, it is Ruffalo, but also you have to, and this is where I really give kudos to Whedon, is he distills all the characters because he was one of the co-writers.
Yeah, which is great.
I finally got a sense of, and I've gotten this from the comic book forever, but you finally get a sense in the movie of the anguish that Banner is dealing with.
Yeah.
The internal struggle that he's constantly having to contend with so that he doesn't get out of control. And Ruffalo really captures that. And for me, that was really the key.
I took that so many different ways in terms of what formulates his anger. Is his anger his suffering? Is his anger, you know, his inability to lead a normal life? You could take that so many different directions.
I think it's all of it.
And he plays it all so well.
It's all of it.
It almost doesn't really matter what the answer is because he plays it all so well. You know that he's suffering, and that's all you really need.
Well, I think that's why he becomes the Hulk, because he has anger from so many sources.
Yeah.
I mean, the abuse that he took from his father. The fact that, you know, his love Betty is gone. All of this stuff. I mean, if you want to look at a guy who's gotten a raw deal, this is the guy.
And I love his answer as to how
he controls it.
How he controls it. Yeah. That was beautiful.
One of the big moments. And it's interesting to look at how quickly and the effects have developed. The Hulk is always going to look a bit cartoonish. I mean, there's no getting around it. You just have to accept that going into the movie. But what I really thought was cool was that you could still see Ruffalo's face.
Yeah.
In the Hulk, they were still able to retain the features of his eyes.
He did the motion capture for that.
Right, but they must have. There must be some program though where not only does he do the motion capture, but they're able to, adjust his normal features.
Yeah.
So that they don't look, ridiculous. Mm-hmm. It all still is in proportion.
I want to talk about for a second the Hulk's defining moments, and I'm not spoiling anything when I say this.
You better not be.
I hope not. There's a scene where the Hulk roars that I found absolutely hilarious.
Well, yeah, the fact that the Hulk is the comic relief in the movie.
Yeah.
On more than one occasion.
Yeah.
It was really refreshing.
On at least 3.
Yeah.
On at least 3. And as much as I enjoy the banner of Robert Downey Jr., I was always waiting to see, okay, what's the Hulk going to do next? And there was one scene of the Hulk in, and I guess what it is, Stark Tower, with Loki.
A bad guy.
And I cannot tell you what happens, but I can tell you will be laughing for at least 2 minutes straight.
Yeah, I have seen the movie twice, and I have yet to be able to hear what the Hulk says afterwards.
I will tell you what the Hulk...
You can tell me later.
I will tell you later, yes.
Because the crowd reaction has been so big to that, and I know that the Hulk's one line is spoken by Lou Ferrigno.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the best thing ever. Now that makes so much more sense.
And the third moment that you haven't mentioned, but another big laugh, Michael Phillips, the critic for the Chicago Tribune, wrote an article about this moment in Friday's paper, and it was all about timing.
Okay.
And how timing is essential in any comedy.
Right.
And how really that moment is all about timing.
Okay, what moment are you speaking?
The moment with Thor.
Thor doing what?
Hulk and Thor.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's all about timing.
Yes.
I mean, there's a beat there, and then something happens, and oh my. So, I know a lot of people say, oh, this is just a superhero movie, and yeah, you're right. It is.
Yeah, it is, folks.
I mean, yeah. But it's all about the difference of, I don't care what you're making, if you do it well, if you do it with intelligence, that's the difference between a film like this and the Transformers. A film like this and, oh God save us, Battleship.
Yeah.
Okay? If it's smart, if you take the time, the product will be good.
Yeah, I completely agree with
and that's the struggle now. I mean, there was another article I read about how, we are in this summer season, and it's all comic book, action, and they're very right. I think the struggle for a filmmaker now is, yes, I have to deliver this product, but how can I also make a good film
from this
while
product?
I'm delivering this product? I think that's the challenge that filmmakers of these types of movies have.
I would agree with you. I think that it's become a major struggle to be inventive and do original things when you have comic book properties coming out every year.
But it's quite possible. I mean, Nolan has shown it with the Batman films. All the Marvel films have been good. And I would even go back to Superman Returns, which I think is a unfairly maligned film.
I agree with you. I liked Superman Returns. I liked the level of depth we were able to learn about Clark Kent. We didn't really learn about the depth of the evil of Lex Luthor, but I don't think we even needed to, because for crying out loud, Luthor was played by Kevin freaking Spacey. And for that, you really... all you needed to know was the malicious intent.
Right.
What was the point of his malicious intent? Once we figured that out, the movie was fine.
Well, and I also admired the film because they took a great narrative chance there. I mean, they throw something out there.
Are we talking about what I think we're talking about?
The fact that he has a son.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, here, you need to make another Superman movie. Well, this character's been done to death. What are we going to do different? And they went down that road. And a lot of people didn't like it, but I would say, hey,
I believe it worked.
How are you going to put a new spin on this? And they tried it. And unfortunately, it wasn't embraced. I thought it worked too.
You want to tell me why you thought it worked? Because I'll give you my reason why I thought it worked as well.
Well, you talk about a depth of emotion, and that added that to that. And, of course, the ending, of course, is tragic too. That's why it worked.
Yeah. I agree with you there. For me, the depth came from the idea of knowing, okay, now Superman knows that this exists. He has a level of responsibility to help his son grow.
The whole thing about Superman is that he's an alien, and that's always been the thing that separates him, and that closes the gap right there.
Yeah, like that's the one bit of you're not alone, but you don't get to be a part of this.
Right.
Which is the most sorrowful, painful thing that I've ever seen in a Superman movie so far.
Yeah.
More so than the death of Lois in Superman 1.
Yeah. And of course, we'll have to see what happens next summer
with the Man of Steel, with Michael Shannon and Henry Cavill. I do want to ask you about one other thing before we finish today, and that is the trailer for The Dark Knight Rises. I believe
the newest one.
Yes, I believe that's the third trailer. What are your impressions?
It continues to look impressive. I think they're being very, very smart because they continue to not tell us much about Bane. I mean, he's in the trailer a little bit more, but still, there's a lot we don't know, and I think that's a very smart move. Yeah, that's another thing I think with modern films, not filmmaking, but modern films. I think I've told you before, I would be very happy never to see a preview ever again in my life.
I agree.
Because they just give away too much. This one, though, they're giving you just enough to get you interested in it, but they're not giving you the whole story, and I think that's quite smart.
Does the same apply for the Amazing Spider-Man's third trailer, or no?
I don't know. I haven't seen that third trailer, although I did see a really neat thing out at Savoy the other day. They've got a new stand-up pop-up thing in 3D that is really, really neat. I'm looking forward to that, too, and I didn't think I was going to, but, and that's the whole trick. How do we make these stories new again? And I think they've found a way to do it there, too. I
think for The Dark Knight Rises, having seen that trailer, my whole thought on that would have been the fact that you basically... I love how the whole trailer just evolves as you watch it. It starts out very, very quiet. And then as things start to happen, as events start to unfold, the sound becomes louder and louder and louder until it finally crescendos into the chant that we've been hearing for the past two trailers. That da 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 da, and it just, I think that he is trying to tell us something. I think it goes back to that whole point from the Joker in The Dark Knight. What will make people go crazy? What will make people be forced to choose? I think that's something that's being highlighted here in the Dark Knight Rises trailer. I also like the one funny line of that third trailer, I don't get in cars with strangers, and Batman says, "This isn't a car.
This is not a car."
And I love that humor can still be injected into these dramatic movies. But I want to say this. I think each superhero movie this summer is its own beast. And to try and compare Spider-Man with The Dark Knight Rises, or The Dark Knight Rises with Avengers, or Spider-Man with the Avengers is a big mistake, because tonally they are all different.
And I guess the only really question remains is which one is going to make the most money.
My answer for that would definitely be, without a doubt, The Dark Knight Rises. I haven't seen The Amazing Spider-Man yet. I do not know. But I'm really, really praying on bended knee that The Dark Knight Rises kicks Avatar out for the #1 selling film of all time.
Would be great, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't either, but you never know.
You can always wish.
You can wish and hope. One thing is for sure, its midnight screenings will probably be the biggest in box office history. So until next time, I'm Chike Coleman, and this has been Real Review Cinematic Underground. We will see you next week. Bye.